December 16, 1944, dawned over Mona, Germany, with a frozen landscape that seemed to shiver in anticipation of chaos. The earth trembled beneath the pounding of artillery, yet this morning, the bombardment was unlike anything the German soldiers of the 326th Volksgrenadier Division had ever encountered. As they advanced toward the small positions of the 38th Cavalry Squadron, shells screamed across the icy skis, not striking the ground or the dense Arden trees in predictable arcs, but detonating in midair with unnerving precision, sending shrapnel cascading downward in lethal cones that offered no refuge. Soldiers hardened by years on the Eastern Front stared in disbelief, confronted by a phenomenon that defied their understanding of conventional warfare. Death from above, delivered with mathematical certainty. At the center of this unprecedented strike was Colonel Oscar Alfred Axelson of the 406th Artillery Group, who, in a moment of audacious judgment, chose to deploy the most closely guarded secret of the Allied arsenal, the proximity fuse, against standing orders. Without awaiting authorization, he commanded his gunners to load shells equipped with miniature radar devices capable of detecting their distance from the enemy and detonating at the optimal height to maximize lethality. These revolutionary devices multiplied the destructive power of artillery by an order of magnitude, transforming every shell into a miniature weapon of surgical precision. While the Germans had amassed 200,000 troops, 1,000 tanks, and nearly 2,000 artillery pieces under Hitler's last gamble, an effort to split the Allied lines and recapture Antwerp, their meticulously planned offensive collided with technology that rendered traditional tactics obsolete. At 5:30 hours, the initial German artillery barrages along the 85-mile front achieved total tactical surprise, firing at a furious rate of 1,600 rounds per minute. American intelligence had catastrophically failed to detect the massive buildup, leaving frontline units ill-prepared, composed of either inexperienced replacements or exhausted veterans rested in this quiet sector. Axelson faced an impossible dilemma. The small, lightly armed 38th Cavalry Squadron was in danger of being overwhelmed by a superior force, and conventional artillery could not stop the advancing Germans. His decision to deploy proximity-fused shells, previously restricted to anti-aircraft use, instantly altered the battlefield dynamic. German soldiers advancing in tight formations were caught off guard as the shells detonated 30 to 50 feet above them, raining shrapnel with unparalleled efficiency. Those who had survived countless battles in trenches, foxholes, or behind trees were cut down within moments, their protective measures rendered useless. The secret technology was a marvel of American scientific ingenuity. Inside each shell, engineers had packed 130 electronic components, including tiny vacuum tubes no larger than pencil erasers, capable of surviving 20,000 times the force of gravity and extreme environmental conditions. Each tube, delicately cushioned, formed part of a miniature radar system that activated at firing, precisely timed to trigger detonation over enemy troops. Developed under the intense scrutiny and secrecy of the Manhattan Project standards at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, this technology had mobilized 3% of all American physicists at its peak. Factories across the United States, from RCA and General Electric to Sylvania and Crossley, switched production lines to manufacture fuses at an astonishing rate, delivering 40,000 per day by December 1944. Every component underwent rigorous inspection, random sampling, and test firings to ensure survival and functionality under combat conditions. Axelson's audacious choice sparked an immediate crisis of command. He had defied standing orders designed to protect the secret from German capture, but the results were undeniable. German formations collapsed under Airburst artillery, halting the offensive in its tracks and leaving Allied commanders in awe. Within days, higher command recognized the necessity of proximity-fused deployment for ground combat, lifting all restrictions by December 21, allowing systematic distribution across Arden artillery units. The 463rd Parachute Field Artillery Battalion at Bastogne, the 420th Armored Field Artillery Battalion with their M7 Priest howitzers, and the All-African American 969th Artillery Battalion commanded by Lt. Col. Hubert D. Barnes, employed the fuses with devastating effect. Forward observers no longer needed to calculate precise targeting. The fuses autonomously found their optimal detonation points, transforming artillery into an almost autonomous force of mass destruction. In forests, the effects were magnified. Airburst shrapnel combined with shattered branches created lethal 360-degree kill zones, negating centuries of tactical knowledge about forest cover, foxholes, and entrenched positions. Soldiers trained in forest warfare found their expertise meaningless, as German units were decimated whether they spread out, grouped together, or attempted to maneuver. Proximity-fused artillery not only obliterated formations physically, but inflicted staggering psychological damage. Elite SS units, specially trained and selected for infiltration and assault operations, found their skill, discipline, and cohesion shattered, sometimes fleeing in panic or charging toward American lines seeking immediate death. Behind this lethal phenomenon lay an industrial miracle. Over 100 factories mobilized, retooling lines from refrigerators, radios, and home electronics to precision artillery production. Workforces, largely women, operated 12-hour shifts 6 days a week, unaware of what they were manufacturing, yet contributing to a technological and tactical revolution that would decisively shape the outcome of the war. By December 25th, proximity-fused shells were firing around the clock, obliterating enemy positions without need for observation, through darkness, fog, and storm, demonstrating that American science, industry, and tactical innovation had converged to create a weapon capable of rewriting the very rules of warfare. Colonel Axelson's unauthorized decision, executed in the freezing Arden dawn of December 16, 1944, had unleashed a force so transformative that its effects rippled through subsequent operations, culminating in the decisive defense of Bastogne, the destruction of elite German units, and a demonstration of technological supremacy that would forever redefine military strategy. The frozen forests of the Arden became a theater of death where precision engineering, tactical audacity, and industrial might combine to produce a revolution in how wars are fought, laying the foundations for the modern age of technologically guided combat and autonomous battlefield lethality, all from a device no larger than a coffee can. In the days that followed, the Arden forests became an ever more lethal proving ground for proximity-fused artillery, its effects cascading across every sector of the Battle of the Bulge. At Elsenborn Ridge, between December 17 and 19, the 2nd and 99th Infantry Divisions faced the full force of the elite 6th SS Panzer Army, including the feared 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, trained to execute precise assaults and accustomed to battlefield dominance. Across 3 relentless days, American artillery units fired an astonishing 160,000 rounds, of which approximately 40,000 were equipped with proximity fuses. Those fuses alone caused an estimated 60% of over 5,000 German casualties, with entire companies disappearing within seconds, leaving surviving units in utter disarray. German soldiers, hardened by years of combat on the Eastern Front and trained in the art of maneuver warfare, found their expertise rendered meaningless. Infantry formations that had once moved with disciplined precision now shattered under airbursts that detonated 30 to 50 feet above their heads, producing a deadly cone of steel fragments that rendered foxholes, tree cover, and entrenched positions completely ineffective. The psychological impact was staggering. Soldiers froze, refused orders, or charged aimlessly toward American positions in search of a swift death, rather than enduring the relentless overhead onslaught. Every attempt at regrouping, every tactical adjustment, was met with instant, scientifically calibrated annihilation, as if the shells themselves possessed intelligence, seeking the optimal point of destruction. On January 1, 1945, Operation Bodenplatte demonstrated the full integration of proximity fuses into air defense. The Luftwaffe, launching 900 fighters against Allied airfields in a daring surprise attack, encountered unprecedented resistance. Anti-aircraft units, employing the new fuses, downed 172 of 277 German aircraft, most through shells detonating precisely at maximum destructive height. The kill rate stunned both sides and cemented proximity fuses as not merely a ground artillery marvel, but a multi-domain force multiplier. By early January, secrecy could no longer be maintained. The New York Times reported on a revolutionary artillery shell that multiplied the effectiveness of American guns, leaving the technical details unreported, while German intelligence belatedly recognized the weapon's true capabilities. Radio-controlled fuses capable of airburst detonations, beyond the reach of conventional countermeasures. Post-war analysis confirmed its decisive impact. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt admitted that repeated German assaults collapsed not because of American courage alone, but due to artillery that appeared to anticipate the enemy's moves, striking with uncanny precision. General Hasso von Manteuffel, 5th Panzer Army commander, testified that even veteran soldiers were terrified by airbursts detonating over their heads, and entire formations would lose cohesion before reaching American lines. Roughly 200,000 proximity fuse shells were fired across the Arden, responsible for an estimated 15,000 German casualties, representing up to 20% of total losses. Each shell's lethality was 5 to 10 times that of conventional ammunition, functioning without forward observation, in darkness, and through adverse weather, transforming artillery from a supporting weapon into a dominant, almost autonomous battlefield force. Behind these staggering figures lay profound human costs. German soldiers, many mere teenagers conscripted in the final desperate months of the war, died under a weapon that seemed to possess awareness, a lethal intelligence that sought them wherever they hid. American factory workers also bore hidden burdens: extreme exhaustion, relentless 12-hour shifts, and psychological stress, while producing a weapon whose full destructive potential they could not discuss. The technological and tactical lessons of the Arden campaign were profound and lasting. Miniaturized vacuum tubes, developed for proximity fuses, became foundational to post-war electronics. Quality control procedures for fuse assembly set new industrial standards, and coordination of hundreds of suppliers pioneered modern supply chain management techniques. The principles of autonomous sensing and decision-making applied in the fuses laid the groundwork for guided missiles and all modern smart weaponry. By January 25, 1945, the Battle of the Bulge concluded. German forces retreated in disarray. Hitler's final gamble utterly failed, with approximately 100,000 German casualties incurred and 75,000 American losses, including 19,000 dead. Eisenhower later noted that had Germany possessed proximity fuses earlier, even D-Day might have faced catastrophic challenges. In the frozen Arden forests, the air itself had become a domain of precision lethality. Death came not from the visible enemy but from the mathematics and physics of American ingenuity, delivered by shells that anticipated their targets, reshaping the battlefield and heralding a new era of warfare. From Colonel Axelson's bold, unauthorized deployment on December 16, 1944, through the massive systematic use of hundreds of thousands of proximity-fused shells, the campaign demonstrated that innovation, industrial capacity, and tactical audacity combined could alter the course of history. The Arden campaign story is ultimately one of transformation, technological, tactical, and human. It proves that science, industry, and strategy, when applied with precision and courage, can exponentially multiply combat effectiveness. The frozen forests and snow-swept fields became classrooms of destruction where the old rules of war no longer applied, and the age of technologically guided artillery, and by extension, modern warfare, dawned, marking a permanent shift in how humans wage war and how victory is calculated. The experience of German soldiers, facing invisible threats from intelligent airbursts that struck relentlessly, remains a chilling testament to the revolution in warfare initiated by proximity-fused shells, a revolution whose legacy echoes on battlefields to this very day.